am I? Here I am. Hey there, Grateful Gang. Welcome to Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. My name is Lauren Blanchard-Zaleski, and I am your host here tonight and every week. We meet every Thursday live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we also record each show for later viewing. But the mission of our show is to each week touch on a topic that pertains to living our best lives with chronic conditions, and that can be physical, emotional. We're getting a lot of new members that don't have either, but just like our topics, because it helps to deal with the struggles of life, and there certainly are a lot of struggles in life. So this is episode 44. We've got a fantastic show tonight with my main guest and a couple of special guests that are going to share their stories with us. And we're going to be talking about how to thrive in a recovery mindset. And I think what you may think about recovery might be a little bit different than what we're going to talk about tonight. So I can't wait to bring on our guest. But first, I missed everybody last week. I'm technically on a writing sabbatical for 2 weeks. I don't think I mentioned this at the last broadcast, but I've mentioned for the past 5 years, I've been writing this book about living with gratitude and chronic pain, and how gratitude has helped me to flourish and live a meaningful life with chronic pain, as well as my group Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. But the group is a full-time job for me, and it's a job that I love, but it takes up a lot of time. So I spoke with my moderators, and I took off 2 weeks straight just to write. But I think I'm going to have to take off another week next week because a lot of things have popped up. So that's what I've been doing. That's why I took off last week. I did not want to reschedule tonight's guest, Anastasia Bean-Moon, because we have been trying to get this broadcast together for well over probably a year and a half. So I'm coming back just for this episode, and it's great to be back. Our last guest 2 weeks ago, Christy Nelson from A Network for Grateful Living. Thank you, Christy, if you're watching. What a meaningful, beautiful episode that was. Congratulations to our winners of the autographed book that she so kindly sent out. It was a wonderful episode that I've gotten a lot of great feedback on. So if you are not a member of our Facebook group, let me just put this up. It is called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. You can find us on Facebook. We have almost 6,000 members now. And what makes us unique is that we focus on living in the solution and not the problem, and talking about positive things and motivating and inspiring each other. So that's why we're different. If you're not a member and that sounds good to you, please feel free to join us. But without further ado, because I think this hour is going to go really quickly, I want to introduce our guest. Her name is Anastasia Bean-Moon. Hi, Anastasia.
Hello. Hi. Awesome to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I did not have to stalk Anastasia for this. It's kind of a joke that I tell my guests. Usually when I have guests, I find an article or a book that they wrote and I stalk them, and they kind of cave because maybe I'm annoying or something. But Anastasia and I actually know each other because we are on the board of trustees together of Chronic Pain Anonymous, which is a fellowship that we will be talking about tonight in the topic of how to thrive living in a recovery mindset. So Anastasia, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into this? Great.
Sure. So I'll just tell you how I became a therapist and how I started working with chronic pain, because I didn't, go to school. I went back to school later in life, midlife, because of my experiences, and wanted to work with addiction and the family side of addiction. And I go to school and I graduate, and then I get this great opportunity to do evaluations for people that are getting spinal cord stimulators. And I'm sitting with these people with chronic pain and illnesses, and I'm listening to their stories. And as they're talking, it's like I feel like I'm talking to someone that's in an active addiction. Whether they're on opioids or not had nothing to do with how I was experiencing these people. And one of the best modalities to help people that are living with addiction or struggling with addiction is group and 12-step. It's proven, right? So sure. I started doing some research to create my own group, and I stumbled across Chronic Pain Anonymous, which was so validating for the way I was feeling and experiencing these people. So it was like the person that has an addiction will chase the drug or the craving They'll do anything, their relationships, their job, if they're obsessed with it. The person with chronic pain, they're obsessed with the fix, right? Or the medication or the next surgery or the next procedure, and they'll do anything. It becomes an obsession and it consumes their life.
Yes.
It changes their relationships. They become isolated. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment and fear that can be surrounded around having chronic pain. It has a lot of stigma, hence our anonymous piece, right, with Chronic Pain Anonymous.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so part of my story too is that I like to say that I am fluent in 12-step myself. I was in Al-Anon for about 10 years prior to me becoming a therapist. In fact, it was the reason I became a therapist, loving helping people and seeing that people can get better, that they can truly change the way they think and feel and recover, no matter if it's someone you love that has an addiction or it's depression or anxiety or addiction, codependency, gambling, you name it. People, when they have a mindset of recovery and they really dig in and find out what's underneath the behaviors and the thoughts and the obsession and strive to be different, it's just a beautiful thing. And I just wanted to give it in a bigger way.
Yeah, I know Anastasia knows this, and if you've tuned into my show before, you know part of my story is that I got wrapped up in the addiction of my chronic pain for years. I was always searching for that diagnosis, that next treatment, that next specialist, and sometimes they worked and a lot of times they didn't. And with each thing that didn't work, my hope just got chipped away at more and more and more. And eventually I developed a pretty serious alcohol problem. I was fortunate enough to go to a rehab that had a chronic pain inpatient program, which is how I came to know Chronic Pain Anonymous. I didn't even know it existed prior to that. But I think there is a stigma, not only with chronic pain, but also with, in speaking about Chronic Pain Anonymous, I think people think that it's a sobriety-based program.
True. Right, and it's not. Medication is rarely discussed. Whether you're taking opioids or not is really not the topic. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We suggest sponsorship, and those are things you can talk more privately with your sponsor if there is an issue or something you want to address. But as far as the meetings go, it is not a requirement to be off of any kind of opioids or medication. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think CPA actually says whatever medications you take is between you and your physician. Like they just want to get involved. I want to mention the name of your program, complexpainrecovery.com. She's got a beautiful website on there. And so you run groups and you help families, you help individuals.
Yeah, so and I do workshops for professionals as well. Just talking about how when you went to treatment, they had a pain track. That is pretty rare, honestly.
Yes.
In fact, I believe that program doesn't even exist anymore where you went.
No, it
doesn't. So I like to say there's this gray area. There seems to be this way I can talk to someone that has chronic pain and start talking about the obsession, not the addiction, but the obsession. And they start to listen because I talk about how it is the gray area. Like, for example, the American Pain Association defines pain management as controlling uncontrollable misery. It's actually in the definition.
Wow.
And then recovery, the definition of recovery by SAMHSA, is a process of change where individuals improve their health and wellness and they strive to reach their full potential, and it's self-directed. That's what I like to get behind. That's what I can promote.
Oh, I like that. Would you mind reading that again, the definition of recovery?
Sure.
It's a little lengthy. Recovery
by SAMHSA, that's Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association. They have a great website too if you want to learn anything about any of that. So recovery is a process of change whereby individuals improve their health and wellness to live a self-directed life and strive to reach their full potential.
That's beautiful.
And that's what I try to do and help people as a therapist. And like I said, since I am littered in 12-step, there's so many beautiful words like willingness and teachable and surrender and acceptance. I love acceptance, and people hate it when I say, what does acceptance mean to you? They're like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Like, what if I told you it was the key to moving forward? And So I like to do this. I like to say, so put your hands in front of your face and just squeeze really tight. And this is you going to the medical model and forcing the solution, doing the same thing over and over again, getting more and more hopeless, and just it gets tighter and you can't even see. But when you learn to accept, when you're willing to let go of what you used to do and try something different, and I like to say, you're not going to try harder, we're going to try it different. And you release it and you open and accept just today, right now. That doesn't mean you have to accept it for eternity or even tomorrow or even the next hour. But if we can get used to accepting right now, I'll ask somebody sometimes in the room, are you okay right now? They're like, well, yeah, I'm okay right now. Okay. And then maybe in an hour, check in. Are you still okay? And then you check in. And that's how you start learning to accept one day at a time.
So
and it opens the options.
You really can't move forward without acceptance.
Right.
And it's something, for me at least, acceptance, I have to redo it every day. I have to come to acceptance every morning when I get out of bed. I have to come, right when I think I have it, no, but I've got to come to a place of acceptance again. But it's better for me to do that so I can learn how to move forward with a fulfilling, meaningful life than stay stagnant in the misery that I used to be in, which I know would be very easy to get back to.
Yeah, I tell people you can always go back. So what I'm offering you to try, it's you can always go back anytime.
Yeah. Wow. And I don't think people want to. We've got some comments here. Let's go to see who's here with us. We've got a lot of viewers today. And welcome back, Lauren. Thank you.
And my group, I don't do just 12-step in my group. I certainly obviously promote it. And I love the words like willingness and surrender and acceptance and teachable and open mind. I mean, I use all that in my groups, but I do cover good therapy like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. Mindfulness is a huge piece. In fact, I'd have to say between pacing, in a chronic pain way, and mindfulness, those are the two tools that really seem to work the best for people when they can really master those things.
Pacing.
Tell me pacing. So pacing, it's really a lot like if you were a marathon runner, right? You can't run 25 miles every day, all day long, every day. You would just implode. But you want to be able to, when called upon, to do that race, even if it's kind of last minute or in the near future. So you have to practice every day, and you have to do something every day to maintain strength and stamina. It can be something as simple as standing up to do the dishes. I've had people like sitting at their workshop so they can do their work, and you work a little, then you take a break. Let's say you do the activity you want to do. Maybe it's working in the yard. Maybe it's walking. All right. You want to build up to 3 miles. So you walk as much as you can, like you take an average. What's the most you can walk on a good day? What's the most you can walk on a bad day? Take that average, walk that 3 days in a row. And then on the third day, you add 10%. And then you do that for 10 days and you add 10%. And then you build it up. That way you can count on yourself more likely, because one thing people with chronic pain struggle with is feeling dependable, like they're going to let people down. So they tend to not make any plans, and their worlds get smaller and more isolating. Right. So this way you can kind of count more on yourself to show up. Builds that confidence of functionality.
That's brilliant. I have never heard it worded like that. That's really, really smart, because you're right. We don't like to depend on people, and we have a hard time asking for help in general. I'm generalizing, but asking for help, is a big one, and accepting help is a big one for many of us too.
Yeah. So we explore a lot of like our core beliefs about ourselves, right? Like asking for help means what? You're weak. I grew up in a family that, unless there was a bone sticking out, you don't ask for help. And all your problems stay in the family. You're not supposed to talk about anything that sounds any remotely like mental weakness or something like that, or like you can't handle it on your own. So we learn a lot about group to talk about these things, and to be really honest and aware, right? Aware of what's holding us back in life.
Right.
Which segues into another thing I do a lot of. And I know you had Howard Schubiner on not too long ago.
Yes.
And he is a mentor of mine. And so the mind-body syndrome, right? Our minds are so powerful. The psychosomatic medicine. And this is a very gentle place I have to walk in with people.
Right.
Because, well, what do you mean it's in my head? Or people have suggested that. And then, quoting Dr. Schubiner, I have to say, for me to say that this isn't real for you and that you're not feeling pain would make me cruel and ignorant. So I get real clear on this is a medical field. This is a neuropathway problem. And what if the treatment is psychology and looking at your patterns and your characters and your hurts and which who you've forgiven and not forgiven, all 12-step too, by the way, right? All those things we work in the program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've really enjoyed working with that, not to minimize it. There are people with real tissue damage and pain,
right?
Rods up and down their spines, etc. But I do try to promote, what if we could do 10, 15, 20% exploring the psychological side? And I haven't yet to hear someone say, oh, I don't want to do that. Most people are like, yeah.
Is that right? That's good.
I'd take 10%. I'd take 15%. I'd take 20%. So yes, people are on board for the little bit.
Do you find that when people come to you, they have already kind of been through the ringer as far as dealing with their pain? I know with Chronic Pain Anonymous, generally it seems to be, and even with Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain, it's people that have been around the block a while. They've been sick a while. They've tried all this stuff. They're tired. They're losing hope. Is that what you find that people
you nailed it. You nailed it. And I have to validate that. I know that I'm like the last thing you tried, but I want to let you know most people have been going at it for 5, 6, 7, 10 years before they even considering talking to somebody like me. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I wish that were different. In fact, when I asked actually group members, what do you wish? I was getting ready to do a workshop for some professionals, and I asked my group members, what do you wish your medical community would have told you, or somebody would have told you in the medical field? They said, well, I wish that, one, they would have referred me to pain management faster, because they are professionals. There are lots of good ones out there. They too have gotten a bad rap, but there are lots of good ones out there. And if you really have chronic pain, you need to be seeing a good pain management doctor. It's not about medication. They can do a lot of other things. A good physical therapist. Be recommended a good physical therapist. I like to say, when it comes to exercise, I can't exercise. Well, what if we just called PT for life exercise? It is exercise, and that may be what it is for you to actually maintain and increase your functioning. And people like that because they have this fear of movement. It's actually called kinesiophobia, fear of movement, and it's developed because you don't want to hurt. So PT is a safe way to keep moving. Right. And are you just queuing that up? Yeah, that's awesome.
No, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I lost my train of thought. And the other thing is, I wish they referred them to a support group or a therapist or someone to manage the psychological toll that it has on their psyche, and that doctors in the medical field, for the most part, aren't doing that.
That's and then when they do, my biggest complaint is that I was not told by any of my specialists that you really should speak to people.
Yes.
And when I was through my dark period, I didn't want to speak to anybody, ironically, because I thought it would be depressing. But yet here I was, isolated, not showering, drinking like a fish, that kind of depressing. So I've realized how much a community of like-minded people who understand the feelings that you're going through, how important that is. Feeling unique is very dangerous. Or can be very
I know. I tell them, I said, you are not alone. This is a story I've heard 100 times. And sometimes they look at me like, no way. I'm the only person in the world that feels this horrible and has had this horrible thing happen to me. And you're not alone. And that's another beautiful thing about groups and hearing from other people. In fact, in my group, I'd find myself talking, but like, wait a minute, y'all talk, y'all give each other feedback. And because when you say it, it's so much more powerful than I say it. I could deliver the message, but y'all have to make it real. You have to bring it to life by sharing your experience and your strengths and your hopes with each other.
That's true. We have two of your patients here tonight who are granting us that, which is a beautiful thing. Very fortunate to have them here with us. So I think we may have. Oh no, she's down. I thought we lost Elisa, but she's still here. So when a patient comes to you, where do you start with them?
I typically start with that I promote a recovery mindset, that it's very complex what they have, and it's taken them a long time to get here. And I ask them some questions like, I bet you had a diagnosis and then you get another diagnosis and another one, because no one really knows what to say to you anymore. But you go to the doctor and they're going to want to give you a diagnosis. They're going to want to help you. So then you end up with all these diagnoses and you get this negative expectancy in life. Like you were saying, like it's hopeless. Why even matter? So I promote recovery. I will often read them the first chapter of this awesome book from Chronic Pain Anonymous.
That's a good
Yeah, and we talked about doing that if there's time to do that.
Sure.
Talk about willingness. I talk about acceptance. Talk about surrender. Give me some feedback on what those words mean to them. And they're usually very receptive because no one's really talked to them that way before.
Right.
I can be a very validating therapist. Like, you already know a lot of stuff, and we're just going to use everything you know and try it differently and not harder. And they seem to get a lot of relief with that as well. So I just really talk to them kind of how we're talking right now. And I may tell them the story of how I got into the business and how I understand it like an addiction, how powerful that can be. And I might say, do you know someone that struggles with an addiction or is in recovery? And if they do, they have even a greater understanding of what I'm trying to promote with recovery. So just trying to educate them on what recovery is for a chronic pain patient.
Right. I think, like I said, I think recovery often has that sobriety connotation, but in a way, with Chronic Pain Anonymous and what you do and what I do with my group, it really does, our conditions really do become an obsession.
Yes, it's the obsession.
Not I'm Lauren and I happen to have this illness, but I'm Lauren with the illness. I don't know if that makes any sense. But
yeah, you become the pain. And I do talk about, living in a recovery mindset means taking your pain and putting it in the back burner. And hang on to the miracle. So let's hang on to it. Why not? But we're not going to live our life every day looking for it. Because you know what? When that cure comes or that miracle happens, you're going to see it. You're not going to miss it. Yes. You don't have to Google obsessively. You don't have to be on pins and needles looking for it. It will come to you.
And it doesn't mean that you're giving up either.
No, it does not mean you're giving up.
Doesn't mean you're saying, I give up, just do with me as you will. You can still be proactive. You should be proactive, in my opinion, in your health, but it's just not being obsessed.
I think it gives it space. It gives it space to observe other things.
Because
if we're not accepting, we're pushing that solution and pushing on that narrow road, right? And if we open up, we have to accept, okay, if this is real, if we're really going to be here today, what can I do about it that's different? Yes, absolutely.
And I think acceptance can be hard initially too, because nobody wants to admit that I'm in this for the long haul.
What else?
Initially, you're like, everyone
wants to get better.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so acceptance doesn't mean you will never get better. But I tell people you can be well. You can be healthier, right? You could be living a better life, thriving.
For sure.
And another thing about acceptance that I like to explore is family members. There are people, I've had patients before where, like, their spouse, no, they're getting better. We're not accepting this. And they get to the point where they'd like to say, can you just let me be here? And can we learn to live here? And lots of times it's the spouses that they're saying, no, this is the next solution, especially if they do have means to pay for any kind of anything that's out there. It can be very expensive. They'll just keep pushing. So it's almost like they're letting their spouse down or their partner down over and over again because they're not getting better. But there's a part of them that really wants to just be where they are and be accepted, bumps and bruises and chronic pain and all.
Yeah.
So that's a message they get from the outside world too. You need to be well or you're not okay.
That's a really good point that you brought up with the spouses and the families too, because when you feel like you're not being super proactive, seeing a specialist next week and all that, there can be that guilt associated with that, thinking that you're not really doing anything, but you are. It's just a different mindset, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's internal, right? And not external.
Right.
And recovery is different than pain management, but pain management is all external. Recovery is all internal discovery, internal research, change, reflecting on me and what I can do. And I like to tell people, we're going to look at your past, and I don't want to talk about my past. I said, we're not going to scratch off every scab or whatever that's back there, but it's important to look for patterns and maybe have some things developed. And if they're not serving you anymore, let's get rid of them. So talking about families that way too as well, I'll look at the past a little bit and bring it forward as a validation tool more than anything.
So you work with families as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes,
That's
and couples.
fantastic.
In fact, I study emotionally focused therapy for couples. It's an awesome theory, and I find it easy to work with because it's about the emotions of the heart and not in the head. When I start working with couples, I get all the details because they can like go at it, right? So no. We need what's in the heart. So we get underneath that. So, God, I lost my train of thought. The families, yes. So with an EFT, emotionally focused therapy, there's some things that you can't work with in a couple. One is addiction, one's abuse, and one's affairs, if those are active. I believe chronic pain is also that powerful in a relationship. If it's not talked about in a way that's healing and from the heart, it's going to be that elephant in between that couple forever. So I just studying that, yeah, I think it's that big a deal.
It is. It is a family illness, just like any addiction, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
The program I was fortunate enough to go to, they had a family weekend about 3 weeks into it, where spouses and family could come, and we discussed, my behavior, their behavior, like it was a whole very helpful thing. It really does affect, even though the patient may think it only affects us at the time, because we can get very self-consumed with our problems.
Sure.
It really does affect the family. So let me give, again, complexpainrecovery.com. And I want to talk about Chronic Pain Anonymous, but first we've got some comments here that I want to get to, the people that are here to watch me. That might be a hi. Or it could be a me. I'm not sure. Hi there. Thanks for being here.
Oh, hello. Kimberly, hi. Hey, Kimberly.
Hello. Thanks for being here. I'm missing some here. Welcome back. Thank you, Linda. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi, Bernice. Patricia, she's brand new to the group, I think.
Okay.
I think of acceptance as embracing what is right now instead of bracing for what might be.
I love it. Good.
Me too. Amber Paragallo, being a burden and not wanting to feel vulnerable. So for me, I push those who care about me the most.
Vulnerability is so powerful, though. Not wanting to feel, yes.
Tough to do, but it is powerful.
It is.
For me, asking for help is trusting, and I find it hard.
Me
too, Bernice, for sure. You have any tips for that, Anastasia?
Trusting. Well, yes. Trust is an interesting thing, because when I work with people think of trusting others. I also think trusting yourself. It's kind of like love yourself first before you can love others. I think it's trusting yourself first before you can love others. And lots of times in our life journeys, we really don't know what we need or want. Maybe we were taught not to really ask for what we need or want. There might be some codependency issues and pleasing issues. And these things, do you trust yourself inside to know what's right for you? So I think not everybody trusts their intuition, or they learn not to, especially if they've been dealing with the medical field. And there's a part of them is like, I don't really think this person's right. And I guess I'll do it because they're the doctor and my family wants me to, but there's something inside that just says no, and they don't trust that. So yes, really we're talking about patient advocacy and assertive behavior. And we do a whole session in my group on assertive behavior from the lens of chronic pain and asking for what you need. Because chronic pain patients start to feel shame and embarrassed.
Yes.
And go in and they don't know how to trust those feelings and what that means. So I think it's more of a self-trust to explore.
I agree. For me too, I lost all trust in myself, especially, my rock bottom was a DUI, waking up in a hospital, not knowing how I got there. So that whole period was just such a confusing time for me that once I got sober, and I'm happily sober for 8 years now, by the way. It really took a lot of work to be able to trust myself again, because I thought, well, I got myself into this mess. Okay. I'm not going to trust myself, but it took work. But I think you're right. I think you do have to trust yourself first.
And you're also giving me a great example too of that gray area, because the people with addiction, they're doing this behavior right now. I know it's motivated by emotions and other things. It's the solution to the problem. really addiction, right?
Right.
So with chronic pain, it's a little more confusing because they're doing really what their doctors are telling them to do, but the result is the same. It's the obsession, it's the loss, it's not trusting themselves, it's the disconnect. So that's kind of that gray area between those two worlds that I'm talking
True.
about. They end up in the same place.
You're right, they do. Most therapists are not trained in chronic pain and illness management. Unfortunately, we need more training. Amen, sister.
Hey, I do offer a training, and I do have to get on an airplane to go find training. So there are not a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Where do you find someone like you, Anastasia?
Well.
do you do virtual?
All right. So you know what? I do coaching, and that can extend across state lines. As a licensed professional counselor, I have to, wherever the client is where I need to be licensed. But as a coach or a consultant, which is really, I consider this pain recovery work more short term and more of like a coaching style or a consultation style. So I can work with really anybody, virtually, of course. Now, I know you had Dr. Howard Schubiner online here before. He has a bunch of people that he lists as well that works with mind-body syndrome. So, you know, it's just sort of, I wish I had a better answer. I don't.
There just aren't a lot. We spoke about this at a board meeting recently, didn't we? That there just are not a lot. Like what Patricia said, they're not trained. And Julia, Anastasia is in Georgia, by the way, for anybody who's down in Georgia who is local to her.
But you know what? I do work with therapists. A lot of them do know about recovery. And I like to say, you really already know how to treat these folks. Chronic pain, don't get it like this big thing that's unfixable and uncurable and unmanageable, because people with pain, with physical pain, that's hard to be with somebody in physical pain. Mm-hmm. So, but if anyone's experienced an addiction, that is pain too. Like yes. The most intense pain, or a deep depression or anxiety. I mean, it goes that deep.
Yes.
And so I really try to encourage them. You really already know a lot how to work with these people. You need to get more comfortable with chronic pain. You need to be okay with talking about suicide and these dark places and feeling alone and isolated. All these things you really already talk about, but not in the context of chronic pain and illness. So that helps them a lot, you know. Yeah, okay, I can talk to them about it this way, and it can make more sense.
Yeah, hopefully as time goes by, there will be more like you, you know, in doing research for this book I'm writing. I've learned that in the next year, 1 out of 6 people will be diagnosed with some kind of a chronic condition in the world. 1 out of 6. That is a tremendous amount of people that live with some kind of a chronic condition that's life-altering.
Like chronic pain syndrome, fibromyalgia tends to be one, migraines tend to be one, fatigue syndrome. These all tend to be mind-body syndromes. And once again, I don't want to discount anyone's pain or situation, but those are worth exploring deeper with the psychological.
Totally agree. Getting a lot of comments here. Is there recovery? It doesn't seem like there is.
Well, maybe this is the time to bring in our guest. What do you think?
I think that is a very
great segue, Amber.
Yes,
we have
segue.
People that can tell you exactly how they did it.
So we mentioned Chronic Pain Anonymous, which is a 12-step program fellowship that focuses on losing the obsession with chronic pain and illness. And Anastasia has 2 patients that are here with us today that have agreed to share with us their experience, strength, and hope. We're very grateful to have them. So why don't we start with Shannon? You good to go? All right. Here, this is Shannon. Thank you for joining us, Shannon. And let me see if I can make you bigger.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there, Shannon. Thanks for
I'm Shannon. Here. Thanks for having me. And you know, I was going to go anonymous. I was, because addiction is part of my story. However, just hearing you all talk, and I just feel very safe about sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So I'm here live, but I'm going to read. So
thank you.
My story is entitled, I Am More Than My Pain. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. I've been feeling compared. Sorry, I'm nervous. I've been feeling compelled to share a bit of my story, my experience, strength, and hope. Chronic pain, addiction, anxiety, depression, these used to cripple me. Chronic pain became my entirety. It consumed me. I felt alone, isolated, extreme sadness, worthlessness, shame, and guilt. I lost my purpose in life. I lost myself completely. My story is one of past struggle, loss, and grief turned to acceptance, self-love, compassion, hope, strength, and spirituality. This process was difficult, but as I sit here writing, feelings of happiness surround me. For the first time, I began to love myself, and feeling that is amazing. I became vulnerable. I became teachable. I surrendered. What I was doing was clearly not working, so I had to rely on a power greater than myself. And for me, that's God. My fellowship, the 12 steps, literature, my therapist, Anastasia, treatment, and others experiencing the same thing as me. I was in a very negative, sick place and had a lot of obsessive thinking. My chronic pain began in 2006. I was 26 and I am 41 today. First with my right ankle, and in 2007 with my low back and glutes. The pain became crippling and consuming. At the time, I was teaching music at an elementary school, and I loved it. I was also a music therapist working with kids with special needs. I also played my viola a lot. Music was and is my therapy, my way of expressing myself, my love, my passion, and it strengthened me inside and out. As my chronic pain increased, I began to lose myself. I could no longer do the things I once could. After having every procedure recommended by my doctors, countless trips to physical therapists, seeing a variety of doctors and neurosurgeons, I decided to have spinal surgery. I felt like this could finally be the answer. Well, unfortunately, after that, my life began falling apart even more. My spinal surgery had failed, and I had a bunch of diagnoses. The pain increased, and the nerve pain became so unbearable that I was forced to resign from my job. It was too physically demanding, and my body was shutting down more and more. I ended up in the hospital again and again with no answers. I was miserable. I did not want to live like this, so I asked God to take me from the pain and from this world. I became bedridden. I began overtaking my prescription medications to not only try to numb the pain, but to numb the feelings. My life was a disaster. It was unmanageable, and I had hit rock bottom. Now, however, I realized that to be where I am today, I needed to experience that grief, loss, and suffering. I also realized that I had to accept these feelings head on. I needed to work from the inside out, not the outside in. One of the most difficult parts of this process for me has been grieving my former self. I constantly fought the pain, though now I know I must work with it. Today, most of the time, I'm human, it's an ongoing process. I accept my powerlessness and have the courage to look inside myself and face my past trauma and current pain. I try to meditate and set an intention for the day. I try to be compassionate and loving to myself, just as I would be to a friend. This was really helpful, the self-love piece, because I was really not nice to myself. It was hard. And it still is, but it's a lot easier now. Sorry. Okay, I try to remind myself also to live in the present and that a thought is just a thought. And having the mindfulness and awareness that the initial thought that might come up of fear and everything encompassed with that, I reframe that thought. So I have the awareness that I can reframe that thought, and I don't have to live in that past thinking. And so it takes a lot of work. Years ago, I didn't have the courage to face my issues head on, though with time, I have begun to be more patient with myself, reminding myself to embrace change and trust in the process. I have to say that a lot. The Chronic Pain Support Group with Anastasia and the Fellowship of Chronic Pain Anonymous, along with many other modalities, have helped me to better cope with my pain. In the past, I tried to escape from it, though today I have learned to use tools to cope with it. It took a shift in my thinking, a shift in my perspective on life, a shift towards hope. It is so freeing, but now I have a sense of direction and a feeling of purpose. I am learning to love and forgive myself while accepting my pain, and life on life's terms. I am beginning to notice moments of joy throughout my day. I know that I will have difficult days, and that is okay. I do not have to let it define me. Pain is only a part of me, not my whole. My goal is to live for today, be in the present, focusing on the gratitude and noticing the gifts that life has to offer. And a big component, too, has been the mind-body connection. I did a workshop with Anastasia, Unlearn Your Pain by Schubner, and though some of that was hard to hear, I took what I want and left the rest, just as we can do in any program or meeting. And, I've learned that the emotional pain and the physical pain tend to stem from similar areas of the brain. And sometimes my body's not aware if it's a physical or an emotional. And so, it is, but I recognize the better my emotional pain, the better my emotions and mentality, the better my physical pain, and vice versa. So I have to feed the emotions as well as the physical. It's a whole body. It's a whole body thing. So thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me share.
Shannon, thank you so much. For those of you,
Beautiful.
Where she mentioned Dr. Howard Schubinger, we had him on the show about 5-6 weeks ago, and he was featured in the film that many of us screamed called This Might Hurt. So she's talking about doing his program. What is the name of the book again, Shannon? The workbook?
Unlearn Pain.
Okay.
So we did it with a group of people and in chronic pain, and it was amazing. It takes a lot of work. You got to be committed to the work, but it's like,
I've got to say, she's one of my rock stars.
Yeah.
I could not have done that workbook with someone just walking in. So she was part of about 12 to 14 other people. We all kind of voted, and there's a lot of kickback. Remember, Shannon, about doing this?
Yeah.
But they had a good base before they could really do that work. So that's, I want to validate that. That was not, and we did like 20 sessions with that work.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, that's great.
I think the gift of desperation has been what has helped me to be able to do the work to live a better life. And Shannon, it kind of sounds from your story, it sounds like you have that same gift of desperation. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And we have somebody else here with us too. Let's see if we can get her on. We have down here. Elisa's here. Hi, Elisa.
Hello.
Thank you
Good
for
to be
being here with us.
Of course.
And she's going to share her story of experience, strength, and hope with us too. Let me make you big.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
So like Lauren said, my name is Elisa, and I live with chronic pain and chronic illness. So my chronic pain started in 2010. My symptoms started about 5 years before that, when I was about 15. And then in 2010, when I was about 20 years old, I started getting some sharp pains in my abdomen. And that ended up leading me down this road of chaos and confusion and dropping out of college and trying to figure out what was going on. Moving to Europe for a while because my husband was in the Army, and I was like, I have to be with him. And all of that led me to a diagnosis of Behçet's disease in 2012, so about 2 years later. And that is a rare disease of the blood vessels. It's the autoimmune disease of the blood vessels. Since then, I've gotten a battery of other diagnoses, symptoms, and I've got chronic pain in about 4 places. And as the symptoms were stacking up, and the more that my doctors couldn't explain, so then the symptoms were just sticking with me, the more and more I had a hard time emotionally handling it. I kept trying to work. I kept trying to continue my work as a computer scientist. I kept trying to meet the goals that I had for myself before I got sick, and that wasn't working. And I was trying to keep my marriage afloat, and all of this, basically, I ended up snapping, and I started having these thoughts of, why am I trying so hard? What is this all getting me? And unfortunately, that led to an inpatient stay at a psychiatric hospital here in Georgia. And that is actually where I found CPA and Anastasia. They gave me information on her while I was still there. And I made an appointment with her before I even came out. And she was one of the first people I saw when I got out. So that was in 2018. And it opened these doors for me that I never thought were possible. I thought that I'd have to kind of drudge through life negatively. And in the past 3 years, I've been attending CPA meetings. I've been doing Anastasia's, I did her chronic pain support group, and then I was also part of the mind-body syndrome group with Shannon. And I've also had individual meetings with Anastasia, and I'm currently working the CPA 12 steps with a sponsor. And putting in this work and attending these groups and just showing up when times are hard has completely changed my outlook on life and my ability to thrive and my ability to cope with my chronic pain and my chronic illness. So something that I've really recognized in the past few years, the differences between living before recovery and living after recovery, is that there used to be this cycle to my pain. The pain would come on and I would start to freak out. I would start going through the what ifs. What if it gets worse? What if the pain meds don't help? What if this is a new symptom of my disease? What if my disease is attacking another organ? Mm-hmm. I would go into this spiral that would cause anxiety, and that anxiety would cause more pain, which would cause more anxiety, mm-hmm. and I would get myself completely stuck. So recognizing that pattern and finding that pattern through the work that I've done with CPA and with Anastasia, I was able to change it. I was able to, step by step, baby step, one day at a time, I was able to change that pattern to where when the pain comes on, which is about twice a day, I'm able to use my toolkit, which I've built up over the past 3 years. I have tools that I use depending on where the pain is and where I'm at. It can be meditation, it can be a warm bath, it can be essential oils, it can even be medications when I really need them. And once I use those tools and I know that I've done the best for myself, I let it go. I give it to my higher power. I go, I'm not in control. My higher power is in control. And for me, that's God as well. And I go about my day and try and put that pain back on the back burner since I've done the best that I can at the time for it. And giving it more attention isn't going to help at the time. And getting into this new habit with it has completely changed every aspect of my life to where I'm able to set a routine, and I've stopped beating myself up over how much I can do or how much pain I'm in or what I'm doing for my illness, because I know that if there's something that needs to be done, that like my higher power will make sure that I know that it needs to get done. So I'm so much more positive. And I've seen, like with the routines and the habits, I'm now actually able to work without putting more stress in my body and making my illness work, which is the pacing technique that Anastasia has talked about in the past on this episode. And I just using all of that and and it's not just my illness and my pain that's seen improvements. Like I said, I'm working more. So my professional life is in a way better place than it has been before. And my personal relationships with my friends and family are so much more open and honest because I use these tools to have positive relationships with other people. And I'm just blown away by what recovery has done for me And I feel really blessed that I'm able to take this journey one day at a time and one step at a time. So thank you so much for letting me share my story.
Thank you so much for
Beautiful.
sharing your beautiful truth with us, both you and Shannon. It's just wonderful. If anybody has any comments, since you're on here already, Elise, if you don't mind, when somebody, you can go to chronicpainanonymous.org, by the way. And that's this chronicpainanonymous.org you can go to. And they have all sorts of different kinds of meetings. So when somebody goes to a meeting, what can they expect?
Absolutely. So they're just like any other 12-step meeting, but if you haven't been to a 12-step meeting before, what you can expect is the chairperson will greet everybody and they'll ask if anybody new is there and they'll welcome you. And then they'll either read from a 12-step book like Recipe for Recovery or Stories of Hope, which are two of the main books that Chronic Pain Anonymous uses. And then they'll open it up to the floor for shares. And that's where you'll hear the stories of other chronic pain patients and chronic illness patients and where they're at in terms of the story or the step that you've read. And being in a meeting reminds you that you're not alone and that the problems that you are having in terms of your chronic pain and chronic illness are very similar to those that come to the group. So it's a place to be able to share your story and recognize that you're not alone.
Also, Lauren, the newcomer meeting is it the third or fourth Monday of every month?
I think it's the fourth.
The fourth Monday of every month at 4:00. It's on the website, pretty on the front page too, I think. If you scroll down a little, or the front meeting page.
On Zoom, I assume, right? It's a Zoom.
Yes.
So it's actually on all of the text pages. So if you go to face-to-face meetings, video meetings, online meetings, we have a little text section for the newcomer meeting in all of them. But if you go to the meeting calendar page, you can search newcomer. It'll come up there as well.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Elisa, thank you so much. It's so helpful to have you share your story and Shannon as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
really
for having me.
I'm so glad that you're doing better in your recovery, and I'm glad that you're working so hard on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, girl. Bye.
Well, you've got a couple of superstars there.
Yeah, rock stars.
They are. But you're obviously offering something that that is needed, and I wish, like we keep saying, I wish there were more of you out there.
I like to say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and a lot of people have done a lot of work in a lot of areas. Have had to reach a place where they were ready to listen to.
Yes.
Like I'm saying, those ladies couldn't have walked in my office and I could have, let's do a mind-body syndrome group. They would have walked right back out. So
I
yes.
say that with attitude of gratitude with chronic pain. Also, we don't get people that were like diagnosed yesterday and say, hey, let me join the group about gratitude about my chronic pain, because everybody has their own journey, and you have to be at a certain place in your journey. Maybe they'll get there, maybe they won't, but it's nice to have those options out there. Let's get a couple comments. I can't believe the hour's actually Let's see. So glad hearing Anastasia this evening. The family involvement is an interesting challenge.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Kathleen, thank you. Oh, thank you for my sobriety. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I just missed. Where'd it go? I'm in Georgia, and my counselor, who is not a chronic pain specialist, recommended this for me. And I'd like to say this is the first thing I've actually done, and I'm so grateful for it.
That's awesome.
So happy for you, Amber. Came on my mom's Facebook to tune into this. Thanks for emailing it, Anastasia.
Awesome.
Arzina Bushart.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do like to say too, like when I do, advertise here in Georgia, our other therapists refer, like I said, I'm a short-term kind of adjunct therapist. I'm not looking to take the client on because therapists do great work. I just support it. Just like you'd go to like an EMDR therapist or a rapid resolution or a couples counselor, you go to specialists for certain things. I consider myself that person as a add-on as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because you're reaching all that gray area that nobody else is.
Yes.
Julie, yes, there is Chronic Pain Anonymous everywhere in the world. If you go on chronicpainanonymous.org, we're actually looking to translate some of the literature right now into different languages. So yes, it's everywhere in the world. There's face-to-face meetings, there are Zoom meetings, there are phone meetings, online meetings. I'm missing one. I feel like I'm missing one. You can find a meeting just about any time of the day at this point. And I highly encourage it. If you want to go on a Zoom meeting and keep your camera and your audio off for a while, that's fine too.
I think you read that one.
I'm so proud of Shannon and Anastasia. Rock star. What a wonderful testimony. You are such a strong, powerful young woman. They both are. Thank you, Shannon.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well done, Shannon. Thank you for overcoming your discomfort tonight and sharing with us. Yes, thank you, Shannon. Got a lot out of this presentation. Thanks for all you do, Anastasia, and thanks for the guest speakers too. Very inspiring. You're inspiring a lot of people tonight. Elisa's inspirational too. First time I don't feel so alone.
Yay.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
That's the main thing.
I am so loving this meeting. I'm glad, Sarah. Thank you both. Thank you for sharing, Elisa. Thank you, Elisa. To meet others who have had similar experiences has been a great change for me. We do a lot of this stuff in Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain as well, not in a formal meeting atmosphere like Chronic Pain Anonymous does, but we basically don't talk about our conditions in the group. We are there, we accept our illnesses, we pretend we all have the same amount of pain, and we focus on the now what. And with a lot of focus on gratitude. And I wanted to ask you about that before you left too, Anastasia. How does gratitude play into how you treat your patients?
So for me, I personally have experienced the power and worth of 12-step. You know, we all walk into a 12-step or a group pretty devastated and at our bottom looking for solutions. And when you find the solutions, whether the exterior problem goes away or not, and for me, whether my alcoholics stop drinking or not drinking, I still could make changes. And then I became grateful. It led me to what I'm doing today. And I feel like I live really close to my true self and have a sense of contentment and serenity. So I'm grateful for the inner peace, the inner serenity that I do enjoy. I know it weans and wanes, but I know how to get back there pretty quick, right? It's like it's a tornado. The world goes around, but I can be in that center. And that, to me, I am so grateful because I wouldn't have found it without the discomfort you said. Or what was the word you used? You had a word. The devastation of what I wouldn't have found it. Desperation. Yeah, so I'm grateful for my experiences because I believe that when you have great sorrow or pain, you can experience greater joys if you really can connect it, right? You have a bigger depth of who you are as a person. And that, that self-actualization, that's being, just being able to just have a deeper meaning all the way around. So that's gratitude to me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And, I think people that live with a chronic pain condition too, when you have a good day, and it still may be a day with a lot of pain, but you guys know what a good day means. Don't you just appreciate that good day so much more because you know how the bad days are? So there are, maybe people will argue with me, but there are perks to having lived through this kind of challenge. And everybody has challenges, whether it's chronic pain, illness or not. But I, for my gratitude, I always go back to June 20th, 2013, when I woke up in that hospital not knowing how I got there. And I know that my story could have ended a whole lot differently that day. I could be either dead or in prison for killing somebody. So I can use that and know that anything is better than that. Anything is better than that feeling I had on that day. And that's where my gratitude comes from. And it's, it's something, as you know, Anastasia, something we need to exercise all the time, just like acceptance and all these other things these wonderful things that you share with your patients. I want to give the name of your website again. I highly encourage everybody to please check her out, complexpainrecovery.com. She has a beautiful website, and chronicpainanonymous.org. Check them out if you haven't already. And thank you all for being here. And Lisa and Shannon, thank you guys. I'm going to bring you on real quickly too, just to say thank you guys for being here.
Lauren, thank you. What an honor. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say quickly, next week, Dan Millman, who wrote Way of the Peaceful Warrior, is going to be my guest. So make sure you're here next week. Anastasia, Shannon, and Elisa, thank you so much, you guys. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Peace
Thank you.
and love. Take care.